robots or humans. And what we'd like to do is, if you could, just real quickly maybe go around the room, introduce yourself, where you're from, and who's going to win, up or down? Humans or robots? If you'd like to start, please.
Hi, I'm Ann McQueen. I'm here as part of a PSW, which is a lecture afterwards. If you guys want to come at 8 p.m., there's a neat lecture afterwards. And I think humans will win.
Okay, you want to keep score?
Team humans.
Okay, team humans, okay. Dr. Hershey?
Hi, I'm Bob Hershey. I'm a consulting engineer, and I think that the humans will win because if all fails, pull out the plug.
Pull out the plug, that's right. Isn't that the science fiction movie, when all else
Yes.
fails, just make sure you have 8 feet of plug, right? Please.
So I'm John Watson. I'm going into the cybersecurity profession. I was just wondering what kind of time frame we were thinking about. Just indefinite?
For what?
In the future, indefinitely in the future? Or
Whatever you want it to be.
I think in the future AI might have more power, but I would hope that we would have the power over them to change decisions.
The word is hope, right?
Mhm.
Hope, okay? Please.
Robert, I'm a cybersecurity consultant, and I think humans will win.
Because?
They're in control, at least now.
So far, right? So far. That's
My
right.
name is Christopher Wright. I go to UNC Charlotte, computer science student, and I believe it's a toss-up.
Okay.
Depends on like the moral standpoint of humans who make the AI.
Okay, wonderful. Abel?
My name is Abel Penales. I'm from UNCC. I also believe that, but I feel like as of right now, we're leaning closer towards AI winning. There are not a lot of checks and balances being put. We're just testing it, and then at one point someone says, "Oh, that's going too far," and we're quick enough to stop it. But one of these days, we might miss it.
Okay, excellent. Please.
My name is Mika. I'm from Kyoto University, Japan. I think humans can win.
Humans? Okay. Toby, please.
I'm Toby. I'm a computer science student at UNCC, and I think AI will be more powerful than humans, but humans will have control.
Jay?
Hey, my name's Jay. I'm a computer science student at UNCC, and like he said, I think it's going to be a toss-up because as computer programmers, we're in charge of programming these things, but AI could get too powerful, maybe, so it's kind of a toss-up of how you program AI device.
Okay. Please.
Okay. Why don't you go, man?
We'll let him, I actually know him, so yeah, like, I actually like him a lot too.
Okay, introduce yourself and who's going to win, humans or AI?
Actually, I haven't thought about it more than a second. I think you can do without a very rapid opinion. I mean, let me think.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, let me introduce myself. My name is Martin Schmidt. I work at the World Bank, and I'm co-organizing a conference with Liz Johnson and Mirsad Hatzikardzic on complex systems and policy that will take place in May. It's the 4th one. And I like this topic. In the World Bank, I have worked a little bit actually on automation and future of technology and job replacement. And so there are very strong opinions, of course. Some say it might be devastating if we don't react quickly. Some say it might be devastating if we react quickly. And even if we react quickly, and others say everything will be fine, it's just like in the past. Honestly speaking, I have no strong opinion on this. I think we'll find out.
We'll see if anybody's opinion changes when we get done today. Please.
I'm Dave Rubinowitz, I'm a retired engineer, and I don't believe there's a competition. I mean, who's going to win, humans or hammers? AI is a tool, and I would strongly suggest people read John Maynard Keynes' paper about prospects for my grandchildren.
Wonderful. Back row, please, so we know who you are.
Yes, my
You're
name
welcome.
is Wilfred. I do feel that AI will win because science is humanly made and God is human.
Richard Jordan, Dean of Non-Governmental Organization Representatives at the UN, over 40 years, from New York City. Humans will win because, as I've always wanted to say in a meeting, the woman who knew the phrase, Gort, Klaatu, Barata, Nikto, saved humanity in the day the earth stood still, and the humans won and Gort did not.
You need him on your team, okay, folks? So the human team, you definitely need him as one of your co-captains, please.
My name is Angie Whitehurst. I live here in Washington, D.C. And I believe whoever has the most powerful 2 fingers and a brain will win.
Please.
I'm Erin Heath. I work for the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Definitely humans.
Please.
Gina Keel. I'm a professor at SUNY, and I think it's a false dichotomy. We're already losing in some ways. AI creates disparities. We know about some biases. Long term, I'm with Hawking, and we should be concerned. And the singularity, might decide we are the problem. If you really want to solve the problems humans create, maybe humans need to be reduced, eliminated. So there is some long-term concern.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. And do you have an opinion? No, okay. All right. So what we want to do is, there's a lot of different opinions and there's a lot of perspectives where people are coming from. So we're just going to give you a few today. We're going to tell you a little bit what it is. Most of you have a good familiarity with it. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the history, and then we'll go over what some of those areas will be, maybe present, past, future. We'll go into cybersecurity, we'll go a little bit into banking, and then I'll finish up with ethics and the value, Pew Research, what they've said, and some of the leaders in the field, like Hawking and some of the rest. So if you want to introduce yourself, Caleb, please.
Hello, my name is Kaleb Wainright. I am a senior studying computer science at the University of UNC Charlotte. I work in Charlotte, so we commuted here today. And I'll be speaking to you guys briefly about the history of AI. First, we'll just define generically what intelligence is. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines intelligence as the ability to learn or understand or to deal with new and trying situations. It further goes on to explain intelligence as the ability to apply knowledge to manipulate one's environment or to think abstractly as measured by objective criteria, or the key issue here, measured by tests. It's something testable. Some of the first instances of an artificial intelligence throughout history are in Jewish folklore, referencing a golem, actually, that was made out of, I believe, mud and other materials. But it was given this intelligence by man to both move and accomplish tasks. Later in the 8th century, Homer also referenced artificial intelligence in the form of automatons that were created by Hephaestus. These specifically were metal men, animals, and monsters that could move, and some very special ones even think and problem solve just like a man, but they're created out of metal. A specific example of one of these would be a mechanical tripod, which actually served directly to the gods. It would go and bring things to their quarters. Both of these not introduced traditionally like an artificial intelligence, like we think today in a computer. But that's because, like these two literary examples, they did not have a mechanism for the intelligence. They didn't have any kind of a way to actually deliver the intelligence to the different forms that were problem solving and or moving. Frankenstein is a great example of this. It was written by Mary Shelley and published in 1818. It talks about a monster that was created by a mad scientist that was actually given knowledge to then problem solve and move around. Another later example in 1907 was the Tick-Tock of Oz. This was written by the same writer as the Wizard of Oz in 1907. It specifically describes the character Tick-Tock as an extra responsive, thought-creating, perfect talking, mechanical man that thinks, speaks, acts, and does everything but live. This is getting a little closer to what follows being robots. First introduced in the popular play in 1922, I believe, was the RUR. This play was written in the Czech Republic, and it focuses on artificial workers that could then complete tasks for the humans. This was actually the first time robot was even coined, giving some explanation as to how these different forms were going to actually gain their intelligence, how they were going to problem solve or change tasks. This mechanism was blown wide open with the introduction of computing. In 1936, Alan Turing presented the Universal Computing Machine, which laid out basically the outline, essentially, of what our generic modern computers would be. Following that, in 1950, Alan Turing created the Turing test as a part of his influential paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence. This introduced the test to actually test a system or anything for intelligence, whether you could pass as a human or if it was indeed flagged that it was a mechanism. An example of a early artificial intelligence, and then after that will be additional examples growing in complexity. But the first example is in 1950, Arthur Samuel created an artificial intelligence program that actually played checkers. And in this checkers program, it was specifically interesting because it learned from playthroughs. It would play against humans, it would play against other machines, and that's how it would learn instead of simply being taught through code. Following this in 1956, Alan Newell, J. Clifford Shaw, and Herb Simon developed the Logic Theorist, which was a program designed to actually mimic the decision-making of humans. This goes to show just the rapid jump in complexity that was made in these different systems. In that same year, actually, there was also the Dartmouth Conference on Artificial Intelligence, which coined the term AI. And finally, my last example, really demonstrating the intelligence, is Feigenbaum's EPAM, which actually explored associative memory and forgetting in a psychological study. It actually implemented a psychological theory to then be tested. Now, with an actual ability to give intelligence, and the fact that we've made advancements led to how are we going to actually use this intelligence? Where are we going to apply it? A very common form is actually in different, like one viewer mentioned, tools. A specific tool would be CPath, which is a program created by Stanford, and it is a computational pathologist. This assists pathologists in actually identifying tumors and breast cancer in cancer patients. This helps to more rapidly and effectively identify and diagnose problems. Another example of AI being used in just everyday life that we don't even think about but we interact with is American Express uses deep learning to actually monitor your account to make sure that there's no theft. A fun example of machine learning and AI being used in today is IBM's Chef Watson AI actually assists chefs in coming up with new food combinations and new food recipes. And finally, I listed an arbitrary example of AI in Toy Talk's Barbie, just to show you truly how a commodity artificial intelligence is becoming. The Toy Talk Barbie actually has, I think, over 7,000 or 8,000 voice lines pre-recorded, and it uses a machine learning algorithm to actually allow your child to talk and have full real conversations with the doll. So AI has really come a long way. We have another one. Is it stuck? Anyway, it's just on to my opinion anyway. But I believe that humans, like a few of you have said, will win against AI, but not necessarily in a full-on competition, one versus the other. I think that in instances like CPath and like IBM's Chef Watson, humans will come up with creative ways to actually work with the artificial intelligence tools that we've created. And the other side of that coin of working with our creations, we have to be actively involved in the development of further implementations and how we're going to direct that trend and where it's going to go. Because if we do not direct it, then yes, AI will steamroll everything and take over. But if humans truly do have a hand in working with and defining the new role of artificial intelligence as we progress, we can conquer it. Thanks.
Habib's getting set up. So how have your thoughts changed since you went through the history?
I didn't know how generically humans have thought about an artificial intelligence for so long. I've never thought about growing up in school learning about like personification and giving human characteristics to other objects. I never thought about it in the sense of artificial intelligence, but looking through the history, humans have been fascinated with how we can make things think and be like us forever. We've always wanted to create a new us, and I think with computing and artificial intelligence, we're finally finding a way to actually implement that demonstration. Any other questions?
Would AI have application in, in the Democratic candidate field, there's a man named Andrew Yang, and he's proposing $1,000 universal basic income. That seems to be his main thing. Do you see AI displacing so much of the labor force that outside of services, interpersonal services, is it likely to be a mechanism that enters the political management and governance field in direct way, like perhaps managing to just free redistribution of income to stimulate the flow of money in the economy?
Definitely. Like I said, I think truthfully it'll be how we monitor the trends as it progresses. Because like you're saying, in the service industry, we're already seeing it today where you don't deal with a person anymore. Most times you walk up to a kiosk and you tap something. And so just any other form of automation is kind of kicking out everything. The big worry, or not even worry, but looking forward to universal income, worries that AI will essentially take over all workforce positions. And this could be a possible outcome, but it'll all come down to the trends and how we define it and the policies we make. Do we want to allow all of those jobs to be displaced? Do we want to allow that type of implementation at all? That type of thing.
So what controls would there be?
Whatever we tell them to do. Unless we teach them to learn, then it's really up to them. That's the danger.
Hello everyone, my name is Habib. I'm a master's student at UNC Charlotte. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the past, present, and future in computer science before going into cyber.
Let's let him come. We've got one of our AI experts on ethics is right with us right now, so we'll let him go. Hello, how are you?
Well, thank you so much. I apologize for delayed show up, ladies and gentlemen, participants. So I had AI ethics and related policy development consortium in San Francisco every March. And as per current, we are working on that how one can benefit in terms of policy development. And development comes after design, and the design needs architects. So if you are an undergrad student, or if you're a grad student or a PhD student, or if you're related to artificial intelligence, and you have to bring in the algorithms in terms of our everyday life, I must say that you have to assert these, because as a human, we make a decision on the whim, on the go. The algorithm needs a background knowledge, a prior experiential knowledge. Pardon me, my nose is like all blocked. And to have that, we have to train those algorithms. And the barriers that we are watching at this very moment is building the decision-making models that can utilize the AI effectively. So the decision-making models are the one, as human we do. When I'm speaking with you, I know that I can see Habib moving around the screen next to me. And I can hear a background noise a bit of something like that, and I heard Liz. So as a human, I know Liz and I know Habib. Habib is fortunately one of my very brilliant students of machine learning class. So So I'm thankful for him to be there. So as of now, we need to get data, and the data comes in chunks of, extracts, not the complete stories. And learning happens with the complete stories that we have in our mind as a human or as a collective of humans to process. So these are the few things that we are looking into in terms of generating the insights, in terms of collaborating between the agencies which deal with the human data sets. So there are internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, and then there are non-stakeholders who are affected by some external stakeholders, some action. And if these are all the internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, and non-stakeholders, if we align them and we have all those artificial intelligent agents working, then how the decision will be made. That's the biggest barrier at this moment we are facing. Liz, is that a good start?
Excellent start, excellent start. And if you could tell us where we are as far as ethics, as far as decision-making and responsibility.
Well, the human element or the human intelligence is a research scientist called Greenwood. He says it's easily to overstate it that and think that AI is the tool you install and it solves all of your problems. So it does not. If you had a chance to read the latest novel of Dan Brown, I'm not recalling the name, but a brand new book that came out, and that discusses that if AI makes a decision, how moral that is. Because we learn from fiction. I don't know how many of you are Star Trek fans. Or Star Wars, I don't consider much of artificial intelligence, but Star Trek definitely. Where the decision, there used to be a thing called Prime Directive in Star Trek. Even though that's fiction, means do not intervene in a developmental, phase of whole living being species, not to give them toxins or, not to intoxicate their process by introducing the ingredients which they are still yet to go and incorporate in their research in next, let's say, 50 years, because that will corrode the things. There is nothing perfect. The ethics means extremely, it's like morality. Like between, let me take an example here. Habib is a good example here. He's one of my students who used to take active part in my machine learning class and ask the questions while drawing some things on the board. I understand him and I know him. I have read his work. So I never had much of a look at his drawings, which he used to draw on the whiteboard while asking questions. And that technically for you all might not be anything, but me being an AI and ML practitioner, it's clear for me that Habib was not computing at one thing. He was asking questions, he was drawing the whiteboard things, and he was connecting the dots in his own specific way. So this is something ethical as a human that I should listen and take notes, but that's again a very bad moral example for the rest of the class. It's more of an understanding. It's a human understanding that I had with Habib while he was sitting down in my class and working. So this is a very basic example. What if a self-driving car is running in and stops a bit after watching an elderly on a wheelchair, but since the elderly is coming and the calculation happens in statistics that this person will not hit the car if it drives by even with like 2 to 3 inches gap. That's an unethical decision. Machine will not think about it. machine will make a choice where it will go. And however, the impact is on that person who's crossing the road in a wheelchair. And that might be terrified, might back off, and my backing off might let him fall on the road. Then who's responsible? So these are the few things that we are looking into. Liz, is that a good example?
Excellent, excellent. So,
Thank you.
what are the biggest challenges as we move forward? I know you've worked really hard on your conferences to address these, but what would you think needs to be the focus?
Well, machines can do good things. I don't know what's your the audience age groups here, but there was a movie called I, Robot. And see, Habib asked how many people have seen that. Ask them to raise their hand. And tell me the count, please.
About 8, 9, 10.
Out of?
At least. Out of
15-ish.
15, 20.
About half the room.
Okay, so 8, 9, 10 has seen the I, Robot. I, Robot is a movie where robot helps everybody. Well, thank you so much for all of you who raised your hand, and all of you who have not raised your hand. I would definitely suggest you to go ahead and, oh, there you go. Hey, guys. Wait. So I would definitely urge you to look at iRobot movie, which will allow you to comprehend in your mind that how, if we work with robots as our servants, how we will behave. So most of the audience here is pretty much North American oriented. I came from Pakistan in 1997, left the country, and I had servants in my home, 4 of them. So my father's first thing was, you must respect them as you respect us or yourself, because they are humans and they have thought process, and it. And obviously, when I came to North America, I had no idea what slavery looked like in the USA, because I was not much aware of that. But in Pakistan or India, where we have servants who are paid employees of our houses, and they do chores for our house, what if there is a robot there? What if there is a Siri, Alexa, or a Google Home is running that robot? It doesn't matter if you yell at that robot. The robot will have no pre-collection that yelling means that the person that robot is serving is in some sort of tension or is mad or something like that. Robot will carry on its own normal pace and will work at its standard course of action, and course of action comes from algorithms. I hope everybody here sitting drives a car, right? So when you drive a car, what's the first thing you do? When you have to drive a car, what's the very first thing you do? Anyone, please put your words.
Turn on. Buckle up.
Say it again.
Seatbelt.
You have to first unlock the car, and then you have to open the door, and then you sit in. Then you put a seatbelt on, and then you switch on, ignite the car on the press. So there's a step-by-step algorithm that we follow. You have said absolutely right. You have to put seatbelt on. But again, how we all know, because it's our collective knowledge that we have inhibited in us, that that's how we will be driving a car. What will be happening when we'll have a self-driven car which has absolutely no start button, nothing like that, no key ignition? We'll still have to open the door, we'll still have to sit in, we'll have to still put the belt in, and nobody has to tell us that. Because environment is the biggest teacher. Artificial intelligence or AI agent has no such environment as their teacher. So think about it. That's where the research is to be needed. How we can bring in all those unsaid steps in our programs, which are the artificial intelligence algorithms in terms of C++, Java, Python, or any other language, C#, which actually is running those devices. And making those devices realize that it's not that device-centric or, self-centric, as we say as a human. It's not device-centric, it's about the environment-centric. We as a human will come together to curb something when something is going wrong in our society. And that means the collective takes some action. So the collective does not exist in the AI agent's life. Liz, is that a good add-on?
That's good. Does anybody have any questions? Please. No? Yes? No? Fire away, if you do.
Please go ahead. Don't be shy. Trust me. I would have found time. I just couldn't sleep because of that snowblower putting snow on my face. I am in North Dakota, and we had a 1.5 feet snow last week.
Wow, 11.5 feet. I think John's got a question for you.
Yes, please.
So in the beginning, Professor Johnson had us introduce herself and ask us who she thinks will win in the long run, AI or humans, and I was wondering what you had to say about that.
There has been a cut. Would you please repeat yourself?
So in the beginning, we introduced ourselves, and we were asked whether we think humans or AI are going to win in the end, in the future, and I was just wondering what you had to say about that.
Well, another 150 years, bare minimum. Humans are winning. Let me tell you why. As a human, all of you, you need a cup of coffee, food. That's your energy source. We can live in the shadow, in the dark, as long as we can survive by having our nourishment coming in terms of this is our battery. As long as we have that button to switch off any AI agent, we are in control. The day the self-nourishment of a device or an AI agent will go and will be self-sufficient. That's the time when we'll have to think about it. But as a human collective is huge. AI would be starting from North America, maximum China will replicate it, and India would come the third to replicate it. Obviously, when I say North America, it means Europe is next following, and China is the third following. But as long as we have the button to switch off that thing, or we know that these are the wires which are going, and if we rupture one of the wires, the circuit breaks. We are in total control. And I am not skeptical. I have a PhD in cybersecurity, and I have a PhD in artificial intelligence. And I have 2 masters in software engineering, another master's in pervasive computing. So I am telling you, with my extensive background and living in the four countries, I had first ever seen an AI robot working in the United Arab Emirates in 1998, when everybody was sleeping. Trust me. My first hand touch was in UAE on the screen in 1997 to pay my bill. On the screen when I moved to North America, I said, why are you not using those screen touch? And the question was, what is that? So that's the thing. As long as we are in control in terms of our nourishment goes on, our mind is barely used like 6 to 7%. And the collective mind is very powerful. So we are covered. We are in control. John, I'm with you.
All right, any questions, anybody else? All right, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Hope you get over that snow, right?
Connect with me on the LinkedIn and fire away your questions whenever you have any in your doubt. And trust me, if I don't respond, I'll send you my phone number, call me, and I'll make sure that to assist you in my best capacity. Thank you for your time, all of you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I think you're gonna cut him.
I gotta cut it off. Okay. Oh, he left.
Yes.
Has anybody here seen or heard of the movie Colossus, the Foreman Project?
No, please share
It's
with
from
us.
about 45 years ago. I would strongly suggest it's probably, no, nothing.
It's not that
nothing.
one?
No. I would strongly, I think it's on YouTube.
Okay,
I would strongly recommend that you see it.
because?
It's relevant.
Okay. All right. We're doing it.
Colossus, the Foreman Project, F-O-R-B-I-N.
Can we have a summary on that? Like,
No.
Oh, you're not gonna tell the ending, you're gonna make us
I'm not
buy
even
the
telling you the
movie.
middle.
Okay, or the middle or the beginning.
Oh, wow.
Oh, by the way, I, Robot started out as a novel by Isaac Asimov. The movie is very different from the book. So don't take the movie as the idea.
All right, Habib, you
All
wanna move us on to the next area, which will be cybersecurity, a little bit of an overview, and what's happening with AI and cybersecurity?
I think we had a lot of overview. It was Dr. Atif, Kaleb, and Ms. Jensen. So I was just gonna add on that, like for the last 20, 25 years-ish, was the improvement of the internet, programming languages, computer science, and computer science. The world has changed considerably till today because we came from something like we came from field with something like that and sort of not organized, and we decided to give a lot of tasks to software developers over the years to build what a lot of application that we might be using today, like banking apps, website, mobile apps, and a lot of ways that have a goal to make our life easier. With the improvement of computer science, we were always trying to find a way, how can we be more efficient? How can we make life easier without doing too much work? How can we save all those papers, all those extra work that we can do and just move from here to here, just a simple work. So that's what's been going on for the last few years. And now I think we gave too much in control to computer science, and we're not prepared for what's coming next. Because now with all those softwares that we've been using, there's been, I think all of us have pretty been aware about gathering data. So from like Apple Watches, if you realize, gathering data. For example, what else? Privacy too. We started having issues with privacy, and that's what leads to actually cyber threats. So cybersecurity is a field that is getting more and more on the spots because every single company nowadays are investing in cybersecurity. Everyone want to keep his reputation. Everyone want to be number one. Everyone don't want his data shared. No one want any hacking happening into the company or firewall intrusion. So some of the ethics I can go over in cybersecurity. Some of the most common attacks happening are keylogger. We don't even realize it. Sometimes we tap a lot on our keyboard, but there is actually a file saved in our computer that record every single stroke that we do with on our keyboard, but we don't even know it. And when an attacker get a hold of that file, he can get your password or any kind of information you might be tapping. One of the most dangerous attack that is happening nowadays is the denial of service attack. A lot of companies are having this issue currently, and they still can't solve it. We were upstairs a while back, like an hour ago. There is a health company, actually, I didn't quite hear the name, but they had an issue like that, I think this week or a week ago. A phishing attack is one of those attacks that get a hold of your personal information. That's why a lot of companies such as Bank of America and many others, probably you all went through those trainings, try to protect you from phishing emails, for example. So prevent attacker from getting your personal data. One of the most common form of attack viruses. We are trying the best to build as more performant antiviruses we can use for our computer. And one of the last is clickjacking, being tricked by an attacker to click on something malicious without knowing. So sometimes we can try logging out on our bank account, but sometimes we don't even realize the attack has been made so well, we have a page on top of our own page. So we're just gonna enter our username and password without even knowing. Yeah, Peter.
So we're gonna switch over. I know he's on a tight schedule. Peter Bhattacharyya is a senior bank analyst. His expertise is banking and AI and security, and he's gonna let us know what's the latest with AI in banking.
Hello, Dr. Johnson. Can you hear me?
Yeah, everybody okay? Damn, this is perfect, Peter.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon to all of you guys, and let me just talk a little bit about banking and the artificial intelligence that we are thinking of implementing in our banking system across Charlotte. And of course, it will be considered to be implemented across the United States, but we have a little development team over here, and we type to prototype and then test and then set it across to the rest of the parts of the institution. There's a very pretty famous saying in our little banking community, and it was said by Richard Fairbank, and he's the CEO of Capital One Bank. And he said that consumers will demand it, technology competition will necessitate it. The challenge is banks are not built to deliver those capabilities. That's the problem. Retail banking, the banking that touches you guys' life every day at every moment, it's very old-fashioned. It hasn't changed much since the past couple of decades, but we are trying to move forward. The problem is, while implementing artificial intelligence in banking, there are stringent security regulations by the Federal Reserve Board. And due to our size and the regulatory compliances and policies, the banks are very slow to move forward to develop or implement these processes. But we do see that the general public, they like to have more artificial intelligence. Say, for example, when you log into your mobile banking app, it says, great, you spent, say, $200 less than you put into your checking account this month. And that's something which especially the younger generation finds very helpful, because we really don't balance our checkbooks nowadays. We rely on our apps. That's what we do. I mean, the last time I saw someone balancing a checkbook was my father, I guess. But oh well. So we rely heavily on the app system, the app market. The banking industry knows that to capitalize on this generation and the generation next, and if we are able to do it correctly, we would be able to generate more and more revenue from the younger generations and, of course, the older generations as well. So we decided to use artificial intelligence in the case of banking, and a couple of details, a couple of places that we started heavily investing was, say, for example, underwriting loan data. Say, for example, you go ahead and try to buy a house, take a mortgage, and most of these mortgage, especially the first end of the processing before the verification of your data starts in, where a human being has to intervene, is done using artificial intelligence. We take into consideration how much you make, how much your expenditure is, how much you can afford. Everything is done by AI. Another point that you would be able to relate to quite easily would be personal finance management. It's quite simple. Personal finance means how can you build up your savings account? How can you save more versus spend less? Couple of things where you features your banking apps that these are your monthly subscriptions. Do you want to retain them or not? Say, for example, do you want to continue with your Netflix subscription, your Hulu subscription, or is it something you don't want to continue anymore? These come from artificial intelligence. We learn your pattern, your spending pattern, what you like, and then based on that, we give you suggestions. Another thing that you probably always face nowadays and is when you call into a call center, there's an automatic voice, a computer voice that prompts you, what is it that you're calling for? Is it for banking? Is it for a law?
Hello.
Credit to the most, how do I put it, to the most relevant call center agent. Then, of course, there's the biometric authentication where you don't even have to type in your password anymore. Your face is your password. You take your iPhone, you look at the phone, and your banking app opens. You can do transactions. You can do you can deposit checks, all with your face recognition data. Now, all these are well and good. The problem is, like I just said a little earlier, that the banking industry is very slow to respond to any of these changes. Our biggest competition is the startup companies in the Silicon Valley who come up with all these technologies. And we fear that the overseas banks, especially the Japanese banks, for example, SoftBank, would be faster in adopting these technologies, AI in particular, and they would be able to capture market faster. Banking is all about market capture and revenue generation as much as possible. We face heavy regulations from the US Federal Reserve, and we are trying to work through that. But going through all these regulatory processes is in a way good thing that the general public is protected, but it also means that we respond slowly to the market trends. So that is an offset, a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. And then also there is the debate versus need versus feasibility. Is the market really wants these technologies? Or is people just okay with checking their bank accounts and depositing money versus the high-tech world of it? Do people actually want to see how much they should spend this month versus how much they should save this month, which would be an AI-driven personal finance management? Well, there are other things that AI does, especially in the sense of personal finance management. For example, you might have seen in some of your banking apps that it would forecast your monthly expenditure, and it would give you a pop-up that says your grocery spending will increase by $50 this month. That's because we are data mining your transactional data over the past couple of months, or even the past year, or even the longer you're a customer with us, the better it is. And we see how your spending pattern changes, January 2018 versus January 2019. So month over month comparison, December 2018 versus December 2019. And we could say, maybe at this point in time, we should put some extra money into your checking account from your savings account. Do you want, yes or no? We see that the early adopters of technology love these transactional features. You just have to say, yes, put some extra money into my checking account from my savings account. They love it. And by doing this, we are also able to capture more market share, and we are able to retain customers. So all the banks are also in a competition where which bank provides the most amount of technology to its customers for their use. Sometimes we will tell you if you're going over budget, or if you don't have that much money in your checking account or your savings account, that maybe limit you can limit your eating out, because we are tracking how much money you are spending for eating out, how much money you're spending on gas, how much money maybe you're spending on groceries, your clothing budget, your travel, which is an extensive amount of transaction that we can mine using data mining technology. We can forecast your expenditure better. But these are all things that is geared towards the customer and how much we can retain and add new customers. You would see advertisements very often nowadays that says, easily open bank accounts in under 5 minutes. How do you do that? It's because we use AI heavily. Another part where AI is used, extensively, is to spot patterns in money laundering. That is something we focus heavily on along with other US regulators. Money laundering is a subject where the banks have invested heavily upon, because the US government tracks it heavily, because money laundering can be used for all the wrong reasons. And our first line of defense is the machine learning and artificial intelligence combined, tracking every cent that moves through every United States bank account. And doing that, we know whether you're trying to hide something when you're transferring money from one bank account to another. Now, these are the few things that we have discussed regarding artificial intelligence in the banking community. Now, artificial intelligence over the years would only keep on growing. So the question that begs is, why do banks need more artificial intelligence? We can develop realistic interactive interfaces. What's more relevant to you as a customer? And every customer is unique. Maybe not that unique, but we can condense the customer base from a pool of 1,000 people to a pool of 10 people where their needs are similar, and we can customize what technology do they need. We can have effective decision-making within the banking process. It's basically cognitive systems that think and respond like human experts, provide optimal solutions based on available data in real time. Your real transactional data would be used. And of course, these systems keep a repository of expert information, and this is what we call the knowledge database. All banking industries, all banking houses, BHCs, would use such systems to make strategic decisions to have more market share and market capture. Another interesting thing would be robotic automation of processes. AI reviews and transforms processes by applying robotic process automation. And by this, we can lower a bank's spending by making the robot do the repetitive work, thereby cutting costs and generating more revenue for the shareholders. We save millions of dollars by doing this, and this we can pass on to the customers for their benefits. A couple of things we need to keep in mind. These benefits of AI is infinite. But sometimes we have to keep in mind, do these benefits that we pass on to the customers require as much investment from our end? That's a question and a discussion that we do via customer review. We examine strategies used by financial institutions, and we use these learning to transform the entire financial organization. Sometimes, again, through AI learning, we find that more and more people like email, say an easiest example would be people like email billing or email statements rather than paper statements. And it's profitable for both the banking houses, and it is easy for the customers because they don't have to deal with the paper statements. This was again developed and learned to artificial intelligence and by data mining. Well, I spoke a little about data mining. I spoke a little about artificial intelligence, but all this boils down to the day and age we live in and the need of the customers and the profitability of the shareholders in the end. All three are equally important. Well, this was basically my presentation for today. If you have any questions, I would be happy to take them.
Anybody have any questions? All right, thank you, Peter. Very nicely done, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
If you want to hit mine, I'll finish up. So I'm going to finish up a little bit more on the philosophical end, a little bit what people have been saying, Pew Research, where they are with their ideas, how we're going to move forward, and how we're going to make this decision. So it would seem that AI is projected to be the answer for everything. It's going to solve every single one of our problems, and we're going to live happily ever after, okay? But the challenge is that we've not yet come up with what? Ethical frameworks and standards for our problems today. We don't have clear delineation, for example, automatic cars, who's going to take responsibility at what time, for whom, and when. So we've got all those. What are we looking for? There we go. Mine's already on there.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be on the email.
Sure.
Are we good? Here we go. There we go. It'll come up.
Oh, okay. There
You
we
gonna
go.
hit escape?
Back there. Yep.
All right.
Wow.
You got it?
Mhm.
I'll let you hit. So who's going to win? I work at a Complex Systems Institute, and my interest is that those wicked problems, background and policy, who's going to win and why and how, and who's going to hold us accountable if we can be held accountable. So the Pew Research said one of the biggest changes is going to be in human agency. Okay? What is it that we have control over? What is it that we're experiencing? And again, what are the long-term outcomes? Policies about outcomes, right? What's going to happen given this? Okay? So we're still back a little bit. So we've got all this agency wrapped up what? In seeded code. It's a black box. And here everybody's fairly familiar with what AI is, but very few people out in the real world have a very strong understanding how it's developed, what the context is, if it's unbiased, or what goes into that box to make it happen. Okay, please. Data abuse, which we talked about. So it's about data use and surveillance, and that's going to happen where? Mostly with corporations and with governments. Okay, so we're talking about power and profits, the two big P's, okay? And what's missing, I'm sorry, that's okay, you jumped a little bit early. What we're missing are the values and the ethics. They're not, what, they say baked, they're not integrated into these systems yet. So the values and the ethics, and I think in a previous talk they talked about the same thing. We've got these globally networked organizations and institutions that what? We need to make sure we infuse those values, those ethics, once we come to some decision, please. Job loss, which we talked about a little bit today. Does anybody imagine having a robot boss? It would be like being at home again, my mother, like, so what's expected is pure chaos. They don't know. Total social upheaval. It's going to do what? Reinforce the disparities that are already there. It's going to do what else? The gender disparities, racial disparities, all that it's projected. And we talked a little bit about universal income, but again, widening those divides, and then the possibility of populist uprisings. We talked about maybe the possibility of, again, universal income. Dependence lock-in is what the Pew Research calls it. So the reduction of our ability, everybody one in here, the reduction of our ability cognitively, socially, and for survival skills. That's a big deal. We're losing it bit by bit, bit by bit. There are those that will say AI is going to enhance our being, It's gonna make us smarter and better. My students this year are smarter and better, I can tell. I guess it must be AIs having their impact, okay, because they're getting ready for their final exams next week. So what you want to think about is this eroding the ability. To how much and to what degree? That's the big issue. Please. Mayhem. That's the other one projecting. We've got autonomous weapons. And if you have ever seen, there's a video, I don't think we'll quite have time to see it, but there's a drone that has the ability to fire. It's a make-believe video on the internet. And the drone comes up to the person, and you don't mind, do you?
No, go for it.
So I'm the drone, right? And I know Abel's one of my enemies. I'm gonna say he's a terrorist, all right? But I don't know for sure, all right? So it's gonna come up, and the drone comes right up here. It recognizes him with visual facial recognition. It comes to here, pop, shoots him in the head. Okay, so that's the capability in the future. Okay, that's the capability. So we've got cybercrime, which we talked a little bit about today, which is what can transform the entire global economy if we keep going to blockchain, if we keep going underneath the surface of what's going on in our regular economies. And then I think a time that a good number of you would agree, we're what? There's a breaking down maybe of some of our institutions through the weaponized information. We saw that in the last election. Facebook was working with one of the researchers and gave their data to Cambridge Analytica, and it ended up, by mistake or by accident or deceit, whichever words you want to use, but 250 million people on Facebook received messages because of that. Did it change the election? I don't know, but it does have impact when you put it cumulatively. Please, we'll keep going to the next one. All right, some of the better quotes. All right, from Mozilla, Mark Cernan. AI will continue to concentrate power and wealth in the hands of a few big monopolies. That's based on China and the US, and most people will be worse off. Okay, that's one of the projections. We don't know for sure. Robot rights. And I think this is one of the most important slides that we can talk about. There's an amazing slide that I saw that had an abortion protester say babies are living things, and I don't mean to offend anyone's position, but I'm just sharing the cartoon. And then it had robots saying, please, you can't kill any of our files. These files are like our babies. You can't kill these files. And I thought that was fairly striking for an analogy. And then what you've got. So again, this is 2030. The greatest questions are going to be what? Projected. They're going to be on what? Civil rights, questions about privacy, speech, the right of assembly, what personhood is. And again, previously mentioned, that's even with the singularity, which is a combination or everything funnels down with what? Nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, and cognitive science. So again, we haven't even talked about AI and transhumanism. So we've got to come up with personhood and what an independent AI would be. An independent AI is going to do what? Maybe sentient? Okay, if it moves beyond our comprehension how advanced it's going to be, it's not going to need our opinions, is it? But if we program it and we say, hey, these AIs, what they can do all our work. Should they work 24/7 like we do?
We do.
Wow, but I mean, should they work, I'm sorry, I apologize. Should they work 24/7, okay? Or should they, if they are sentient, and should they have those rights, and should they have time off too? Are they only there to serve? But AI is designed to serve what? Humans so far. Definitely designed to serve humans. But what happens when they're designed? Will we let them expand to their own exponential self-fulfillment? And that fulfillment is going to be what? AI is going to have their own goals. Okay, they're going to have their own purpose. And they're going to have their own ways of doing it. So these are some of the questions that we're looking at.
Will they have emotions, empathy, sympathy, anger, fear?
Excellent question. I mean, that's all possible. But I guess another question to ask is, will we have empathy for them? Are we going to have compassion and heart? for what we've created. Are they persons or what level of persons? Or, this is just a pretend live news feed, but what's the worst thing? Is it private property? If so, we can just make another one. So again, highlight some of the big issues. All right, one of the leaders in neural interfaces, I strongly believe the answer depends on if we can shift our economic systems toward prioritizing radical human improvements. Okay, it's about our relevancy in the face of AI. I don't mean jobs, but the true existential irrelevance, which is at the end of not prioritizing human ability and cognition. So you've got the global good. We're all going to work together across borders with these complex groups and these complex entities, work on solving wicked problems. Value-based systems, and we talked about that a little bit this morning. What does that mean? Value-based, we've got to value what? Humanness in the common good. And Martin, we actually do analytics in the common good. That's our whole purpose of the conference that we put on. So talking about values and how it interface, again, how we can get these decentralized, intelligent digital networks with empathy. So we start having the ability and the capacity to address these issues. We're going to prioritize people, okay? We're going to better help not race against, but how can we race with AI as we move forward to the future? We've got these economic and political systems to expand capacities. What is the collaboration, and how can we move forward with relevancy? Keep going. In the beginning, there is a checkboard, and you can see checkmate, how AI wrote the rules of chess. I thought it was one of the better quotes. Technology magnifies what exists for good and bad. And according to this anonymous source, simply there's more bad than good to be magnified. So when we're looking about AI, there's going to be less autonomy, is the guess, for humans, which means less power. Are we going to have freedom for these robots? Are they going to be free to pursue their own goals? Most likely it's going to be suppression of someone's rights, whether humans or other AI or whether robots. Large actors are going to benefit, which we're already seeing. And we're going to see a datification of work. Okay, we're already seeing that as how we look at work and how we perceive it. So I invite all of you, this is a chess game, whether you have AI or whether you have your own brain, to make your own move as we move forward. Thank you. Any questions, everybody? Please.
Thank you for the presentations. There is one, being a New Yorker, over the last 35 years I have hosted homeless people in church-run shelters over 2,000 nights. That is 1.2 nights average per week. It's not a lot. It may sound like a lot. Homeless people number about 100,000 in New York, including families that ride the subway all night with babies. Most of them do not use smartphones. They do not want necessarily to go to city shelters. So when you show a photo, I'm just extending this. If you show a photo of a robot begging for mercy, the question is, how are we going to deal with the homeless population all across this country if we're thinking about robots and not people? I'm not saying that thinking about robots is wrong or bad. The questions are important, but homeless people first. Sorry.
No, I think it's totally great. I mean, we're talking about the social good. I was in Nepal this summer, and I got the chance to work with sex trafficking. And 8,000 children die a year from bad water because they have these are the issues that we haven't solved ethically yet with our priorities and our resources. And again, are we getting ahead of ourselves with AI? So I totally agree with that. So
thank you.
Please.
Yeah. Well, just, when you talk about having empathy and whatever, and these guys are doing bad and so forth, it seems to me rather that we're really thinking about AI as a replacement in many cases for what people would do. So therefore, it's not really caring about these robots or whatever, we care about the habits that are being formed in interaction with children, with people who are in service situations, which is something I've studied a lot of. And it makes a huge difference. So I wonder if the conceptualization could be just tweaked a little bit. Because, for example, when you say, somebody else asked, you know, are they really at work 24/7? So what, in a sense, you're really talking about giving life. Like, are they alive during this period of time? And of course, you know, we have to be very, very careful about the metaphors that we choose to use. I mean, just as you've been pointing out, but I just, I want us to be careful about that. As I've said, one of the things that I personally have studied is social interaction and face-to-face types of situations where people are in close contact with each other, in co-presence, who depend upon each other to solve the situation at hand. It could be a baby screaming because he's hungry, you know, it could be somebody who's trying to transact something with business and so forth. And so it matters in real life. With humans, there's a thing that we think of as ritual, which is how people actually pay attention to each other in terms of their spiritual worth, as it were. Yeah, I don't know if I really propose that we extend that into what we grant to robots. But I am very sensitive to the fact that to the extent that we are planning to program robots, program, you know, repetitive interactions, so that people are in fact being trained, being socialized, then it's very important that these things be done, quote, with as much positive mimicry, I would say, for ritualism. But it's important that we really maintain some humanness that.
Well, it makes us human, our humanity.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It is, and all the debates about what it can do and for whom, and capitalism, how it serves that purpose, which intrinsically in itself is not good or bad. But again, how do we hold on to our humanness? Very well said. Well, thank you for joining us today. Any changes on votes? All right, all in favor. Who thinks that humans are going to win? Okay.
I mean, before that, I just want to mention there's going to be some couple cool presentation upstairs, IoT, AI, robotics, and a lot of topics that Peter mentioned. So if you want to head up there. And one other thing before you vote is it's all about generating revenue and how can we make life easier, more efficient. This is one of the projects I worked with Dr. Atif. That was my final project for this semester. So actually, in probably a short amount of time, our life going to be based on machine learning. This is a way to analyze X-rays. So whenever you go to the doctors, you get X-rays. This type of algorithm will just take your X-ray and just analyze it and give your doctor a result back. It will say if you have a normal X-ray or if you have any kind of disease. So this is like a summary of what could be tomorrow. If we can do this with X-ray, we can do a lot of things with AI. So that's something to consider.
All right, so in closing, freedom to humans and or both robots. That's your question. Who will win? Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.